The doorbell rang at 6:30 on a Thursday evening. I remember the exact time because I was standing in my kitchen waiting for the kettle to boil, still wearing the clothes I'd worn to work. It had been raining all afternoon, the kind of cold British rain that makes everything outside look gray and tired. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the front door, my brother James was standing on the step, and beside him was his 9-year-old son, Daniel. Daniel was holding a tiny navy blue backpack with both hands. That backpack was the first thing I noticed. It was far too small. There couldn't have been more than a couple of days' clothes inside it. Daniel was still wearing his school uniform. His trainers were wet and covered in mud, and his face looked far too serious for a 9-year-old boy. James looked exhausted, but there was something else in his face. Fear. I'd known my older brother my entire life. I'd seen him angry. I'd seen him stressed. I'd seen him embarrassed. But I'd never seen him genuinely afraid. "What's happened?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he looked over his shoulder toward the road. His car was still running at the curb. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside. Daniel walked past me without saying a word. James crouched in front of his son. "Listen to your aunt, all right?" Daniel nodded. "Be good." Another nod. Then James stood up. I frowned. "Wait, you're not staying?" He looked directly at me. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Just for tonight." "Why?" His eyes moved toward Daniel. His voice dropped almost to a whisper. "Don't ask him about his mom. I thought I'd misheard him." "What?" "Please, Emily. What's happened to Rebecca?" He shook his head. "Don't ask Daniel. Don't ask anyone. Just keep him here. James, you're frightening me. What's going on?" He didn't answer. He walked toward the door. Daniel finally looked up. "Dad?" James stopped. For 1 second, I thought he would turn around. He didn't. "Be good, mate." Then he walked outside. I followed him onto the step. "James, what the hell is going on?" He was already halfway to the car. He turned around. Our eyes met across the wet pavement. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Whatever you do, don't let him call his mom." He got into the car. The door slammed shut, and seconds later, my brother disappeared down the road, leaving his 9-year-old son standing alone in my hallway with one tiny backpack. I closed the door. Then I turned around. Daniel was staring at me, and that's when I noticed his trainers. They weren't just wet. They were covered in mud, as if he'd been running. Then I saw something else, a tiny red mark around his wrist. "Daniel," I said gently, "what happened?" He looked at the front door, then at me, and whispered, "Dad said you wouldn't believe me if I told you." I barely slept that night. Daniel was asleep, or at least pretending to be in the spare room. I left his bedroom door slightly open. I told myself it was because I wanted to hear if he needed anything. The truth was, I was worried. I'd always been close to Daniel. When he was little, he used to run into my arms whenever James brought him over. But I'd always noticed something strange about his family. James and Rebecca had been together for nearly 12 years. From the outside, they looked perfect. A nice house, a child, a Labrador, Sunday roasts, Christmas photographs, the usual happy family. But whenever I asked James about Rebecca, his answers were always short. "She's all right. She's tired. She needs some space." I never pushed. That was something my family had always been good at. We didn't ask difficult questions. We pretended everything was fine. Until one afternoon, about 2 years earlier, when Daniel was playing in my garden. He suddenly came running inside crying. James crouched down. "What happened, mate?" Daniel wiped his face. Mom was shouting again. James went completely still, only for a couple seconds. Then he forced a smile. "She's just having a difficult day." At the time, I let it go. I wish I hadn't, because now, standing in my hallway and looking at Daniel's muddy trainers, I understood something. James hadn't suddenly become frightened that Thursday evening. He'd been frightened for a very long time. I just hadn't known what he was afraid of. The next morning, Daniel came downstairs in his socks. He stood in my kitchen staring into the cereal cupboard. "Hungry?" I asked. He nodded. I made him toast and scrambled eggs. He ate almost everything. But every time a car passed outside, his shoulders tightened. "Are you expecting someone?" I asked. He shook his head. "Your dad?" Another shake. I sat opposite him. "Daniel, you're safe here. You can tell me anything." His fingers tightened around his fork. "Dad said I shouldn't tell you." "Tell me what?" He looked down. I decided not to push. Instead, I let him watch cartoons. But I couldn't stop thinking about the backpack. Eventually, I went upstairs. It was sitting beside the bed. I picked it up. Inside were 2 t-shirts, pajamas, underwear, a toothbrush, and a small paperback book. Then I noticed the front pocket. I opened it. Inside was an old photograph. It showed Daniel standing between James and Rebecca. James was smiling. Rebecca was smiling too, but Daniel wasn't. He was looking away from the camera. I turned the photograph over. 3 words were written on the back. "Don't trust him." I stared at them. Then I heard footsteps. Daniel was standing in the doorway. His face had gone completely white. "Put it back," he whispered. "Who wrote this?" He shook his head. "Daniel, I need to understand what's happening." His eyes filled with tears. "Dad said you'd ask." "Ask what?" He looked at the photograph, then whispered, "Mom didn't leave us." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "She didn't leave." "Then where is she?" Daniel looked toward the window. "I don't know." I crouched down beside him. "Daniel, you can tell me the truth." He reached into the backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I found this in Mom's room." "What does it say?" His voice was barely audible. "It says she knew they were going to lie." "Who?" He didn't answer. Instead, he folded the paper and put it back. Then he looked at me. "There's another bag." I stared at him. "Where?" "At Dad's house." "What kind of bag?" "The same as this one." Suddenly, I understood. James hadn't sent Daniel to me with everything. He'd sent him with just enough to make me start asking questions. The next morning, I called James. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. I sent him a message. "Where are you? Daniel is asking for you. Please call me." No reply. I couldn't sit there anymore. I took Daniel to the park for an hour, then drove to James's house. I told myself I was going there to get Daniel some clothes, but I knew that wasn't the real reason. I needed answers. The house looked exactly as it always had. Neat garden, blue recycling bin, curtains drawn, no lights downstairs. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. Still nothing. Then, to my surprise, the door opened. "James?" No answer. I stepped inside. The house smelled empty. Not dirty, just abandoned. Then I noticed James's keys on the hallway table. If he'd driven away, why had he left them behind? I walked upstairs. Daniel's old bedroom looked untouched. Then I opened the wardrobe, and there it was. Another navy blue backpack, almost identical to the one Daniel had brought to my house, but this one was much heavier. I opened it. Inside were women's clothes, a jumper, a pair of jeans, a purse, and an envelope. My hands started shaking when I saw my own name written across it. Emily. I opened the envelope. Inside was a printed email. The sender was Rebecca. The subject line read, "If anything happens to M.E." I read the first few lines. Rebecca said she was frightened. She said James had been hiding something from her, something involving money, something connected to the family business. Then I saw the sentence that made my blood run cold. If James brings Daniel to Emily, it means he has finally decided he cannot protect him himself. I read it twice. Then I heard a car pull up outside. I froze. Someone had come home. A man's voice called from downstairs. "Emily?" I knew that voice. It was Mr. Harris, my father's old solicitor. When I stepped into the hallway, his eyes immediately went to the backpack in my hands. His expression changed. "Where did you get that? Why?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slowly walked upstairs. Then he said, "Because Rebecca gave me one exactly like it 6 months ago." I stared at him. "Rebecca?" He nodded. "She told me that if anything happened to her, I was to give it to you." "What was inside?" He looked at the backpack. "Evidence." "Evidence of what?" His face became serious. "Evidence that your brother has been lying to you about what happened to his wife." We went into the kitchen. Mr. Harris opened his briefcase and took out a folder. 6 months ago, Rebecca came to my office, he said. She wanted legal advice. About James? About her marriage. She believed James was moving money from the family business. My stomach tightened. Why? She had found transfers between accounts, and some of those accounts were connected to your father's estate. My father had died 3 years earlier. James had handled most of the estate. Mr. Harris explained that my father had secretly established a trust in my name. A trust James knew about. A trust Rebecca had discovered, and a trust worth enough to completely change my life. But the money wasn't the real issue. Rebecca had discovered something much bigger. She believed James was being pressured by people connected to my father's old business. She had gathered evidence. Then she disappeared. You're saying James hurt her? I asked. Mr. Harris shook his head. No, I'm saying I don't know what happened to her. He handed me another document. It was an email from Rebecca. This copy had an attachment, a photograph. James was standing outside a bank beside a man who supposedly had died years earlier. I stared at the image. How is that possible? Mr. Harris looked at me. Because that man wasn't who you thought he was. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Nobody spoke. Then I heard a woman's breathing. Slow, shaky, and finally, a whisper. Emily? I froze. I knew that voice. I hadn't heard it in 6 months. But I knew it. It was Rebecca, alive. Then she said, "Please don't let James find Daniel." The line went dead. I couldn't move. Rebecca was alive, and she was afraid of my brother. A few minutes later, headlights swept across the kitchen window. A car had pulled into the driveway. I knew that car. James. My phone buzzed. A message appeared. "I'm outside. We need to talk." Alone, then another. "Please don't involve the police." That second message told me more than anything else could have. If James had nothing to hide, why was he afraid of the police? I ran upstairs. Daniel was sitting on the edge of the bed. "Is Dad here?" I nodded. His face changed immediately. "Don't let him take me. I won't." Then Daniel reached into his pocket. He pulled out a tiny brass key. "What is that?" I found it in Mum's room. There was a number stamped into it, 17. I remembered the photograph, the bank, the date, the evidence. And suddenly, I knew this wasn't just a family argument. Something much bigger was happening. I went downstairs. James was standing in the hallway. His clothes were damp from the rain. His eyes immediately went toward the stairs. "Where's Daniel?" "Safe, Emily, please no." He stared at me. "You don't understand." Then, "Explain it." He swallowed. "I need my son. Why?" His voice dropped. "Because Rebecca is dangerous." I almost laughed. "She's dangerous? She isn't who you think she is. She's alive." James went completely still. "You spoke to her?" Yes, his expression changed. Not anger. "Fear, you need to listen to me." "No, you need to listen to me." I showed him the photograph. The bank. His face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "Daniel's backpack." "And the email?" Silence. Rebecca left it for me. James closed his eyes. Then I asked the question I'd been waiting 6 months to ask. "Why did you lie to me?" He didn't answer. "Why did you tell everyone Rebecca left?" Still nothing. "Why did you send Daniel to me?" Finally, he looked at me. "Because I knew she'd come back." My heart sank. "You knew she was alive?" "Yes, for 6 months." He nodded. "Why?" "Because I was trying to protect Daniel." "From Rebecca?" "No." His voice cracked. "From the people she was investigating." I stared at him. "What people?" He looked toward the stairs. "Dad's business wasn't what you thought it was." I felt the room tilt. "What does that mean?" "Dad had been moving money before he died." "The money you were stealing?" "I wasn't stealing it. You were hiding it." "Yes, why?" "Because someone was threatening me." "Who?" He didn't answer. Then I remembered the man in the photograph. "The man at the bank?" James nodded. "The man everyone thought was dead?" "He wasn't." "Then who died?" "His brother." I stared at him. "And Rebecca found out?" "Yes, that's why she disappeared." "She went into hiding." "Because of you?" James looked down. "Partly the word hurt more than I expected." "Did you hurt her?" "No." His eyes filled with tears. "I swear, Emily, I never touched her." "Then why was she afraid of you?" "Because I lied to her." He took a breath. "And because I knew that if those people found out she had evidence, they'd come after Daniel." For the first time, my anger changed. I didn't forgive him. Not yet. but I understood. James hadn't abandoned his son because he didn't care. He had finally run out of places to hide. Then Daniel appeared at the top of the stairs. "Dad?" James turned. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then James dropped to his knees. "I am so sorry, mate, Daniel didn't run into his arms. He simply stood there. Then he asked the question we'd all been avoiding, 'Where's Mom?'" James looked at me, then at Mr. Harris. Finally, he looked at his son. "She was right," he whispered. "About what?" "She told me to trust your aunt." 3 days later, Rebecca came home. There were no police cars, no reporters, no dramatic scene. She simply appeared on my doorstep on a cold Monday morning. She looked thinner than I remembered. Her eyes were tired. Her face carried 6 months of fear. Daniel saw her through the window. He didn't wait. He ran outside. Rebecca dropped her handbag and caught him in her arms. They held each other for a long time. Then Daniel pulled back. "Did you really leave me?" Rebecca's face crumpled. "No, darling. Then why did Dad say you did?" She looked toward James, then back at Daniel. "Because your dad was frightened." "Of what?" "Of losing you." It wasn't the whole truth, but it was the truth Daniel needed that morning. Over the next few weeks, everything finally came out. Rebecca had discovered the hidden money transfers. James had been trying to keep money away from people who were threatening him. Instead of going to the police, he'd tried to handle everything himself. Rebecca had gathered evidence and gone to Mr. Harris. When she realized she was being watched, she disappeared deliberately to protect Daniel. The 2 backpacks were part of her plan. One went to Mr. Harris. The other stayed with Daniel. She knew that if James ever became desperate enough to bring Daniel to me, I would start asking questions. And I did. The truth had never been hidden in one place. It was scattered across small things that didn't make sense until they were put together. A photograph, a handwritten note, a key, a solicitor's file, a mysterious phone call, and one frightened little boy carrying everything he trusted in a backpack far too small for him. James eventually admitted that he'd known Rebecca was alive. He hadn't told me because he was terrified I'd get involved, and he was right. I did get involved, but I was angry with him for something deeper, not because he had been afraid, because he'd made Daniel carry the weight of that fear. Children shouldn't have to understand adult secrets. They shouldn't have to learn which questions they're allowed to ask, and they shouldn't have to wonder whether telling the truth will cost them someone they love. James apologized to Daniel. It took time before Daniel trusted him again, but slowly, things began to heal. Daniel went back to school. He complained about homework. He argued about vegetables. He left his socks in my living room. Life became ordinary again. And one Saturday morning, several months later, Daniel came running into my kitchen carrying that same little navy backpack. I laughed. "You're still using that thing?" He smiled. "Mom says it's lucky." "Lucky?" He nodded seriously. "It brought me to you." That sentence stayed with me. Because when James first left Daniel on my doorstep, I thought that backpack represented something terrible. Fear, secrets, a broken family, a child being passed from one adult to another because nobody knew what else to do. But eventually, I understood that it represented something else. Trust. Daniel had carried that little bag into my home because somewhere inside all the confusion, someone had trusted me to keep him safe. And I did. I still think about that Thursday evening sometimes. The rain, the headlights disappearing down the road, my brother walking away without explaining anything, and those words, "Don't ask him about his mom." If I'd listened to him, I might never have found the truth. I might never have opened that backpack. I might never have found the photograph. I might never have met Mr. Harris. And Rebecca might never have found her way home. So now, whenever someone tells me that asking too many questions only makes family problems worse, I disagree. Sometimes questions are the only thing standing between a family secret and a child's future. Sometimes the smallest thing you almost overlook, a photograph, a folded note, a tiny key, or one little backpack, can carry a truth that people have spent years trying to hide. Daniel still has that backpack. It's older now. The zip sticks. One of the straps is coming loose, but he refuses to replace it. Last Christmas, I asked him why. He shrugged, then he smiled, because it brought me home. And I think that's the part of the story I'll remember for the rest of my life. Not what my brother hid, not what Rebecca discovered, not even the lies that nearly tore our family apart. I'll remember a 9-year-old boy standing in my hallway, holding a tiny backpack with both hands. And I'll remember the moment I realized that sometimes being someone's safe place is more important than having all the answers. That Thursday evening, my brother left his son at my door. He thought he was leaving me a problem. He was actually leaving me the truth. If this story stayed with you until the end, I'd love to know your thoughts. If a little boy arrived at your door with nothing but one small backpack and a broken silence about his mother, would you have the courage to love him without ever asking what happened? Share your answer in the comments. And if you enjoy realistic stories about family, betrayal, and justice, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next story.